Today we're going to go over what you can expect if you're looking to rent a vehicle and drive around Japan. Everything from the rental process to the rules of the road and a few other tips. I'll fill you in on everything that I learned while I drove over 1,000 kilometers around the absolutely beautiful scenic countryside of Japan. So why would you rent a car in Japan? Clearly this country has some of the best public transportation, period. I mean, I've been here multiple times. I've had no reason to ever need to rent a car. But if you want to kind of get off the beaten path, that's what you got to do. But first things first, how do you actually get a car in Japan? There are multiple car rental providers around Japan that will rent to tourists, from Nippon to Nissan to Toyota Rent-A-Car. There are a lot of options before you get there. So I turned to Toyota for my needs. I jumped onto their website and selected the class of vehicle that I wanted for this trip, my dates, and that was it. I got updates via email about my reservation and was all ready to get my car at the selected location. But before you rush off, there's a few things you need to take care of before you go get your vehicle. If you're from the United States like me, you want to make sure that you have an international driver's license. Getting one's actually pretty easy. Head down to your nearest AAA location, and while you're there, they can get the correct paperwork filled out. They'll take your photo and put it all together while you're there at your visit. So about a 20-minute visit to a AAA and about $30, and you'll get yourself an international driver's license for your trip. Picking up the car was easy enough. The employees at Toyota Rent-A-Car were incredibly helpful and very nice. They went over some of the rules of the road, as well as some of the details about my glorious 2021 Toyota Corolla Sport hatchback. After a tiny bit of paperwork, they set me free to go on my adventure throughout Japan. It's a good habit in Japan to say out loud while pulling out of a parking lot to stay on the left to avoid pulling out into the wrong lane of traffic. Japan drives on the left side of the road and on the right side of the car, the opposite way from the US and 70% of the rest of the world. This is one of the largest driving differences to get used to from the start. For me, after a couple of days, it sort of became second nature, but definitely at the start, this was a big adjustment to get used to. Luckily, within the car, most things stay the same. Besides driving on the right-hand side, the gear selector will still be in the center, and your pedals are still in the same order that you'd expect them to be in. The one thing I had to get used to, though, is your indicator is on the other side of the steering wheel, and I definitely found myself bumping the windshield wipers multiple times before getting used to where the indicator stock is located. Once on the road, we need to go over some of the basics, but there is always one rule of thumb that I like to follow, and that's to do what the majority of locals are doing. From pulling into traffic to driving the speed limit, going with the flow and following most of what the locals are doing is going to prevent you from standing out and looking like a complete novice, despite actually being one. More examples of this in just a moment. Let's start with traffic signs. It's important to recognize a few of them for sure, the main one being a stop sign. It's plenty different looking than the ones in the US. It resembles more of what looks like an American yield sign in its triangle shape, but does in fact say stop on most of them, unless you're out way in rural Japan with super old stop signs. Next, you'll want to understand the speed limit signs. An outer red circle with an inner number printed will let you know what the maximum posted speed limit is for that stretch of road. If you're on an expressway, you may see a digital version of the speed limit sign where they can update the speed limits based on conditions and traffic. You'll also find giant numbers printed on the road for the speed limit as well. No freedom units are used in Japan, so the number on the speed limit sign seems way faster than it actually is. The speed limit in most towns is 40 kilometers per hour, but converted that to miles per hour, it's only about 25, so not really blisteringly quick. This is when our first example of doing what the locals do kind of comes into play. Only when there was a lot of traffic would I see people driving the speed limit or below the speed limit. But when there wasn't a bunch of traffic, most Japanese drivers I noticed drive about 10 to 20 kilometers per hour over the speed limit. Now, I'm not saying to go to Japan and break the law and speed all around the country, but this is definitely something I observed while I was there. Again, don't speed. It's bad. Part of the reason for this, I think, is because most rural Japan roads are a single lane. So if you're driving slow, you're probably holding everyone else up. Luckily, from what I noticed, most drivers are incredibly polite, and there's that Japanese shared sense of duty that if you help someone, then they'll help you out as well. Whether that's you letting someone into traffic or you needing to merge later on, if you've done this act for someone, then you're gonna likely have the favor returned to you in the future. That being said, you'll still need to be a little bit gutsy and paying attention for when those moments present themselves. For example, if you need to turn across traffic and you'll be holding up everyone behind you, drivers from the oncoming side will slow down just a bit to give you a gap to shoot across to make your turn and relieve any congestion behind you on the road. Another rule to remember when driving in Japan is that there are absolutely no left-hand turns at a red light. This keeps things simple. When there's a red light, you cannot turn, and no one would ever be expecting you to do so either. Just wait for the green light and proceed as you normally would. Another thing to look out at red lights for is when they turn red, but then a lower green arrow lights up for you. Despite everything turning red and indicating you to stop, if a lower green arrow lights up and it's in the direction you're wishing to travel, you're allowed to do so. It may be a right turn, it may be a left turn, it might be even just going straight through sometimes. You will see all of them light up, indicating that your side has the right to go while everyone else is being stopped. It's kind of odd at first to have a red and a green simultaneously, but handy to know when you're figuring out the rules. As you probably know, if you're headed to Japan, there is definitely a lot of foot traffic all across the country. Even if you are renting a vehicle, you'll likely be getting out and walking around a lot to do some sightseeing. This leads to there being a lot of crosswalks. You'll definitely want to look out for these and pedestrians. They are indicated on the road with a large white diamond to inform you one is approaching. Pedestrians often have the right of way, and drivers are expected to be extremely cautious around crosswalks. Make sure you pay attention to them. They are all over Japan. Now, honking a car horn in the US seems pretty common these days, but in Japan, this is not the case. And I heard a total of one car horn the entire time I drove around Japan, and that includes driving through Tokyo, which is something I don't really recommend and isn't super necessary. But don't be that guy. Don't use your car horn. It's for emergencies. Only use it when you absolutely need to. Another difference to be aware of if you're coming from the US is the color of road lines. In the States, a yellow road line indicates from your side of traffic to oncoming traffic. In Japan, that's not always the case. It can be yellow, but it can also be white. In fact, a lot of the time it is white. And I was in a few areas where it was a one-way road that then would connect back to it being divided with no color to indicate there being a difference. Something you definitely want to be aware of. There's also very rural roads that are one lane, even though it's traffic both directions. You'll want to proceed with caution and always be ready to pull to the side of the road to allow room for both cars to proceed. Another difference you'll need to be aware of is how you get gasoline in Japan. At my rental pickup, the staff did go over which type of fuel I needed to put into my rental, so make sure you take a note of that when you get your vehicle. I filled up two different ways when I was in Japan. The first was at a full service station, which an employee ran over to my window and asked me which type of fuel I desired, and then they asked me how much I wanted. In a combination of terrible Japanese and English, I indicated with my hands that I wanted it full. From there, I was asked for my payment method. I used a credit card, which they took and ran to fulfill the payment, and that was that. The second time I filled up was at a self-service station, something I'm much more familiar with where I live in the US, but with one key difference. Pumps in Japan have you place your hand on part of the pump before you start to make sure you discharge any static electricity for safety purposes. Now, if you were not traveling by car in Japan and you were going over large expanses besides a plane, you'd most likely be taking their very robust train system, which leads to a lot of train tracks. Now, Japan actually does a pretty good job of keeping them away from crisscrossing roads by either going through fields or over them on bridges or straight through mountains. But when you do run into a train track, the rule is to come to a complete stop at it before proceeding through it. It's a safe measure that might seem a little bothersome, but this is in the interest of keeping you safe, so make sure you stop before proceeding safely. Japan is covered in toll roads. You can avoid some of them if you want by using GPS, which I did a couple of times to take a more scenic route, but if you want to go around large expansions quickly, most motorways are going to have tolls. Most Japanese rental cars can be equipped with cards that can be read and charged when you pass through toll road checkpoints, also known as ETC. If you'll be traveling around Japan, you'll want to make sure that you select this option when you are selecting your rental car so you make sure one is equipped. This way you don't have to worry about the majority of toll roads while you're traveling. Another thing to be aware of, when you go to return your vehicle, they're expecting you to fill it up as you'll leave with it full when you depart, so returning it full is what they expect. I didn't see any actual stations where I dropped off my vehicle, but luckily they had a pump at their location in which they just charged me the appropriate amount for the fuel that wasn't in the vehicle. So I got a little bit lucky. But I also overestimated what time I would drop the vehicle off, and I was early, and they actually discounted my reservation a little bit because I was early. They then took me to the airport in their shuttle, which was also free. And I also really enjoyed my Corolla Sport. I would obviously recommend a smaller vehicle if you are traveling around Japan and it's a small group of people you're with or only a couple. Smaller vehicles do better with the tight corners and the smaller roads. Something larger would be a lot more difficult and something I definitely do not recommend. Another thing to take note of is how a lot of people park. Especially in smaller lots, most patrons will back into their spaces, so it's easier to leave back onto busy streets. Look out for people backing into spots and do it yourself as well. It does make it easier when leaving for sure. Also note, some space can be so limited in a big city you'll likely be paying for parking. Many parking lots use automated systems where you pay at a machine before leaving as well. Make sure you know how you need to pay before you get set to leave. Japan is very strict when it comes to drinking and driving. Their rules around it are essentially zero tolerance. So if you want to have a drink, do yourself a favor. Make sure you're done driving for the day before you do so. That would be an unfortunate reason to be barred from a country for breaking that law and being caught. Finally, and more of an advanced driving technique for those who don't know, some tips for when driving through the mountains. If you were unaware, Japan is very mountainous. 73% of the country is covered in mountains. So knowing how to drive up and down them is very important. One thing you'll notice, on small back roads in the mountains, they are typically one lane, and a lot of them have a lot of hairpin turns and switchbacks that you'll need to be paying attention to cars coming from the other direction. They luckily set up curved mirrors to help you see around the corners for any oncoming traffic to help prevent collisions and other unfortunate accidents. You'll actually see these mirrors all around Japan on tight streets and corners where it's almost impossible to see around them until you're pretty much already halfway around them yourself. On mountain roads, these are critical to pay attention to. Also, if you're lucky enough to have paddle shifters in your rental car like how I did, it makes it easy to downshift. Downshifting while driving down mountain roads is critical for maintaining control and managing your vehicle's speed without overly relying on the brakes, which could overheat and fail if you rely on them too much. It also makes descending down them much easier as well. Again, with paddle shifters, this is really easy, as just downshifting as needed will help you control your speed. And it wasn't jerky even in my Corolla Sport because it had rev matching. I was kind of actually astonished that it had that feature and was incredibly handy. Honestly, this trip through Japan by car was probably one of my favorites I've had so far. This was the perfect way not only to see places, but to also avoid some of the over-tourism that Japan's definitely been seeing in some locations. As for driving around Japan on your first trip, it isn't what I would recommend. This is a great way to see parts of Japan if you've been to the country and want to get out of the bigger cities to more rural locations. I'll definitely be doing future driving trips myself in Japan, and I think I have one coming up in the future that will be in a more snowier location, and perhaps we'll do a follow-up video with what that experience was like as well. But that's all I have for this video. If you have any questions about anything specific I didn't cover, please leave me a comment down below, and make sure you leave a like on this video if you found it helpful, and be subscribed so you don't miss out on future content. Other than that, I'll just see all of you guys in the next video.